Salukis on the road this weekend against the Bradley Braves, here to preview the weekend and recap the week that was for the Dogs as head coach Jim Sewell. Coach Sewell, thanks so much for taking time. I know an important weekend going to Peoria. It was an important weekend at home. 3 really competitive games with Northern Iowa, and at the very end, I know that was the response you wanted to see from your group on Sunday, on Easter Sunday.
Yeah, it's funny because a couple of people texted and said, I think you guys are going to bust out. And I'm always like, okay, you're not here. You're watching it on TV. But it was a nice little, almost like freeing moment to just let the bats rip a little bit. So
It was another area, too. Going into the weekend, I mean, you look at all the numbers that you can look at, and it was clear the 2 best teams in the league were playing last weekend here in Carbondale. Knowing that, you're going to get a lot out of that weekend.
yeah.
What did you and your team learn the most going up against a really good competitor that you guys respect so much in Northern Iowa?
Yeah, I think that we learned a lot about ourselves defensively. I think it was a good contrast game to see. We kept ourselves in it defensively, I thought, and pitching on the mound. That's going to be important later on when we play a 2-1 game. And we talked about we were probably 1 foul ball away, 1 relay away in both games. So we were very tight in both games. It came down to 1 play, 1 hit. And I think sometimes, it comes out as an L, but it doesn't really come out as an L. And, there's nothing to be decided on that Friday or Saturday. You have to play each game and you have to play each opponent. So, we had sort of won big a lot, and I think we needed like a 2-1 and a 2-1 to understand, hey, when we're 1 hit away, there's no reason to tighten up. Let's just play the game and see how it falls out. So
You mentioned how those games, too, especially Friday, Saturday, I wasn't there, but watching from afar, you could just feel a tournament game type feel.
Yeah.
And those games that you just described, eventually, if you want to advance, you want to get an opportunity to play postseason baseball, those are going to be the games that you're going to be in the month of May.
Yeah, and I think you saw, and we saw this at the end of last year, just how comfortable we are and can be in a 1-game setting. The tournament didn't bother us last year. And when we can get you in that 1 a day, we can really battle it out, especially now on the mound with that ERA being so low. We're always just 1 swing away. And we talked about that going into Sunday, and I think everybody walked into that locker room Saturday night thinking, we're one thing away. It's going to be a big hit or a big play or a big pitch. I don't think you're ever going to shut down both those offenses much more than 2 and 1. So it was going to come down to a couple different plays. I wish we would have converted Friday night's game for sure with their 4 errors. I thought we were 1 swing away, and then Saturday it was probably a fair and a foul ball, and that's the way it rolls sometimes. And to respond on Sunday and not get off to a tight start and a can't-lose mentality, to throw that first big punch was a big deal.
At times with Northern Iowa, I know in the past, you feel like, man, if we can hold them to 5-6 runs, you got a chance because of how good they are offensively and how explosive they are.
Yep.
So when you go through a weekend and you put up the numbers that you do, I know, how does that underline that you all know that pitching really is a strength this year? Everyone knew it was a strength.
Yep.
You knew it early on, but sometimes you don't know till you go up against the best in your league, and you really found that out over the weekend.
Well, I think Maddie Everly probably threw the best game that she's thrown all year Saturday and took an L, and that's the way it works sometimes. But I thought her confidence in that game was big, and that's going to help us in the future. And we know what we're going to get out of Maddie. And then it's just one, like you said, it's tournament time, it's tournament field type games. But I think both pitchers really showed how much they can shut down an offense. And to have 2, I don't know that the league really has 2 right now in that sense. And that's what's showing up in that low ERA is just confidence.
You mentioned Maddie, a freshman pitcher of the month, and so deserving for her and all the numbers that she has put up. We've talked about whether you expected it or not. You remember back in the fall, like, hey, freshmen are freshmen. They kind of go through the learning curves. But as she's navigating her first Valley season and continuing to go through it, what is impressing you just about how she's attacking each weekend, how she's taking lessons going throughout the year and adapting and being better? She's not the same pitcher that she was in February when you started this year.
Yeah, I thought if if someone really sat down and watched the film from Friday night versus Sunday, that's her growth. She can, you know, a lot of times that would take a freshman until their sophomore year to bounce back and say, okay, I can beat you and I can hold them down. But she did it between 24 hours, you know, 36 hours. You know, that's the difference in her. And Maddie's done that her whole career, has just been a bounce back type pitcher. But Maddie can make those little adjustments, and she knew she was going to need her changeup. She knew she was going to have to make sure pitches didn't land in the belt too much, and she was already making those adjustments by Sunday. I mean, those are a lot of times what we take pitchers in. We do film. We try to sell them on it. I mean, she was sold after Friday night. I know I can beat them. I know how to do it.
When I was there on Sunday watching you guys play, it was just so good to see Jackie really look like Jackie.
Yeah.
And I know over the last couple of weeks we've talked about the progression that she's made, but what was so great about watching that game on Sunday, Coach Sewell, was just your team was applying pressure constantly where they had to pitch to her, and man, she was just the confidence that she embodied. She had that swagger about herself that I don't want to say she didn't have it early, but it really seems like she has it now. And how important is it for her to have that for your team, even though you know the strength of your group is all 9?
Yeah, and one of the hardest things to do, I think, is the sophomore season after you've had that amazing freshman season. Yeah. You're seeing Carter go through it as well. And I think they finally, both of them are just like, you know what, we were trying to hit pitches that they wanted us to hit, and we have to go back to hitting what we want to hit. And Jackie's in that phase right now where she's back taking pitches that she doesn't want to hit and working it and then just taking a walk. I mean, knowing that there's people behind her. You know, I thought it was a really cool battle between Papillo and her to see who could swing the big bat. But, I mean, just like in any sport, big-time players show up in big-time games. And I thought, you know, Jackie's going to show up in that game. Maddie is going to show up in that game. So
I don't really believe that a lot of fans understand how hard it is to do what you're describing. And what you're describing is when you're really good as a freshman, where maybe people don't know you a ton yet, even as you're going through your freshman season, they're still seeing you for the first time. Then once they have a year of film scouting on you, you see a lot of players. It's hard to stack really good years consecutively for that very reason. What are those biggest challenges that you kind of hinted at it more from Jackie of when she's at the plate of making sure that you're seeing the strike zone well, you're going at pitches that you need to go after.
Yeah.
But it's not just her. There's so many players throughout the country where people go, man, they had such a good freshman year. Like,
what's wrong?
What's wrong? And
what's wrong?
What's wrong? Like, it's hard to do that.
I think it's sometimes players have to remember that their gifts and their skill did not just vacate their body, right? You know, you're still getting those pitches, and sometimes you have to go back and look and say, I'm hitting their pitch, I'm not hitting my pitcher. I can't do anything with that pitch, but here I am swinging at it. But it is really hard, and I think all we can do is talk about the experience of others. I know Katie Griffith went through it, Mary Jo Fernbach went through it, I went through it. You know, we've had plenty of players that have tried to recreate their freshman year, and with the numbers that are out there, that can really spook a hitter. It can spook pitchers into thinking, oh, they have some sort of magic wand that they can now wave over me. The numbers are the numbers. And I think you have to remember that you kind of have to bet on yourself and your skills. And I think that's where Jackie got back to. And I think hitters have to be reminded that they're not only riding their own wave, they're riding the wave of the person hitting behind them and the production that they're seeing. That's why we wanted to get Jackie into the top of the lineup a little bit and just force her fourth at bat, you know, just sort of the appearance that, and then here comes Warwick and Jones and Hamilton and Carter and Groff and those guys, you know, and paying attention. Yeah, you're going to get pitched differently in conference because they can pay the most attention to you, but now you're going to know what's coming. And sometimes knowing is knowing, right? And you just sit and you wait until you want to go eat lunch. And normally for Jackie, that's hunting a certain pitch. So
this really puts into perspective. It was a topic that we touched up on last week, and you initiated saying, I've been really pleased, Luke, in how we've played on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And to really put it into perspective is one I actually tweeted out last week. You're 16-5 in games that are played away from Carbondale this year. Last year, you're 12-17.
Yep.
And there's reasons you can dive into those numbers.
Sure.
We talked about injuries and everything a year ago for your group. That's hard to do, regardless of who you're playing, whatever opponent's RPI, to be able to get on a bus, go and play, neutral site or on the road, to win 16 of your 21 thus far. What's been in that DNA for your group that you've really liked of they cherish going on the road, which you will this weekend?
Well, I think any team that likes each other is going to fare better on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, and at this time of year, you're seeing teams either go one way or the other. We're starting to get, teams that are annoyed with each other and they're worried about their personal lives or their personal playing time, things like that. Or you have we've experienced, which is like a sort of a much more bonded situation on the road. We experienced it last year as well. We did have the injury factor, but there's a consistency now of on the road. And I think, I heard some people say, well, why less home games? Well, I don't know that it was necessarily on purpose, but it will help us. We're probably not going to host around, it's getting harder and harder. So let's go figure out how to win on the road. And the Valley can help us do that, certainly. And, the tournament being on the road and those types of things, let's go spend it on the road and let's figure out how to get this done. And luckily we're one of those programs that gets to leave on Thursday night. We do, we don't have to travel the day of, like when we're going to Illinois, we're going up the night before. We can spend some time with each other, spend some time with the game, the film, the practice plan, the scout, all of that. So, I think we're just sort of adjusting to what it's going to look like. And I know some teams avoid the conversation about regionals because they feel like it's too much pressure, where we sort of have a language and a conversation constantly about it. If that's what we want, then we need to be able to talk about it and what that looks like. And that's a road game, a road weekend where we're going to have multiple scouts, and what does that look like? So I think our February was built around that, and now knowing this was kind of a half and half year in the Valley, I can't really tell if it's a home or an away season, but knowing the end of our year, May is going to be spent on the road. So
you look at Bradley this weekend. What are your initial thoughts of the Braves as you head in? What do they do well? What are some strengths that they're really going to test you this weekend in Peoria?
Well, first of all, she has done a great job just improving all of their, kind of the trifecta. They're better off offensively, they're better defensively, and they've got better pitching. They don't really have a weakness, and I think that's just the way all teams are trying to come through the Valley. They're trying to shore up the holes that they have. They've got a new kid on the mound that transferred in. I think her first time in the league, she's given, some folks, Sydney Kennedy, a lot of trouble. And it's anytime you see somebody for the first time on their home site, that can always be very interesting. They play at an all-turf facility, kind of at a neutral site feeling. It's not there, but it is theirs. And so I think sometimes they can get you out in that park and get you separated, and then, you have to try to create your own energy in sort of a flat environment. So I think just like last weekend, we'll probably be the loudest squad in the dugout, which is kind of the way we roll, which is hilarious in its own sense. And we kind of have to, as a coaching staff, not laugh at some of the stuff that comes out of there. But we will try to create big energy. So
you do a really good job of that, by the way. You're pretty stoic
some
throughout.
Some of the stuff that comes out of there.
I try to watch you a lot, just because I like learning from coaches and seeing their mannerisms during games. I'm not broadcasting, which isn't very often, but. Same emotion.
Well,
at
and
all
I think
times.
the key to me is like I can't ride the ups and downs of the game. You know what I mean? And Mary Jo does such a great job of just being the positive. Like I'm like 3 strikeouts in a row, really, like or 3. We've taken a few looking or things like that, and she's kind of the positive, and I'm this one, and Katie's sort of taking care of things in the dugout. But I think. I try to provide not a roller coaster because it is a roller coaster in there. And if you're going to ride that roller coaster as a hitter or a pitcher in this league, it's going to be a tough year. So, and we just try to be like high energy, always on to the next pitch, always on to the next at bat. And I think that's the way when the personalities of this team and they really enjoy each other, that makes it a lot easier.
And Coach Soule, there's nothing more than you want when that calendar flips to April to be in position to compete for a regular season championship. your group's done that, and you're in a great position. How much, I don't even know if it's a topic of conversation, but how much do you go, look, I know we lost 2 out of 3 this weekend, but we're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
Like, we're still where we need to be. Now we just got to focus on what we can control here down the stretch, and if we do that, we're really going to like where we're going to be come May.
Yeah, and I think we had a brief conversation about it Saturday, but the biggest conversation is you can't win it today, right? You can't do anything about it today. You can't do anything about it tomorrow. But if you take care of business on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, and you go one, it's, again, so cliche.
Yeah.
But if you can get this team, and I think they have, to go one game at a time, if you look ahead to somebody, which we haven't done so far, you will get buzzed by a team that you're not expecting. So it's always about what is this week. Can we make an adjustment to tomorrow? And then can we make an adjustment to Sunday? So far, I think we've been handling that really well.
Coach Sewell, wish you the best this weekend. All the games, if you want to listen to them, they will be by Mike Trude this weekend. Every game, not every game's televised. So Trude will have all of those games for Saluki softball this weekend. Coach Sewell, appreciate the time. Go get him this weekend in Peoria.
Stay warm in Chicago.
Yes.